Hey lone wolves, welcome back to the channel. You believe you're poor because you possess nothing wrong. You're poor because your thinking mirrors that of a slave. Machiavelli cautioned, "Poverty isn't the absence of money, it's the absence of power," and the reality is harsh. The world doesn't sympathize with the powerless. It consumes them. The instant you begin pleading for compassion, you're not requesting assistance. You're declaring to everyone that you can be manipulated. You see, society conditioned you to fear shortage. They instructed you to remain humble, remain silent, and remain thankful for scraps. They instructed you to hope for a superior life instead of constructing one. And while you delayed, the powerful operated in quietness, seizing everything you were instructed to delay for. That's how they shatter you. Not with shackles, but with compliance. Not by seizing your money, but by seizing your consciousness. Machiavelli comprehended this centuries ago. Men are so uncomplicated and so subject to immediate necessities that he who manipulates will always discover someone who will allow himself be manipulated. When your existence becomes reliant on authorization, you're already defeated. When you accept poverty as everlasting, it becomes your faith. But here's the reality you were never intended to discover. You can be financially empty and still be powerful. You can be encircled by shortage and still function like a monarch. Because monarchs are not characterized by gold, they are characterized by command. The authentic struggle isn't about riches. It's about supremacy over your own feelings, your hours, and your force. A man who commands those commands everything. So cease declaring I'm broke. Begin declaring I'm constructing. Cease declaring I have nothing. Begin declaring I require nothing. Because when you cease perceiving yourself as a casualty, the world ceases handling you like one. This is not inspiration. This is battle. And today I'll demonstrate you how to reason like power, even when the world labels you poor. Now I want you to place this statement in the remarks. My consciousness is my riches. Number 1. Poverty is a consciousness infection. You're not poor because you have nothing. You're poor because you've been conditioned to reason small, to submit mentally long before existence ever compelled you to. Poverty commences as a contamination in the consciousness. An infection that reconstructs your reasoning to comply, to accept, to embrace average as fate. The world doesn't have to restrain you if your consciousness is already imprisoned. Society labels it modesty, but it's really mental surrender. The silent acceptance that you were created to assist rather than to lead. This acceptance distributes through your patterns, your expressions, your bearing, until you begin requesting forgiveness for desiring more. The poor man's damnation is not his absence of materials. It's his devotion of boundaries. He observes power and persuades himself it's wicked, because deep within he's terrified he'll never possess it. That terror becomes his commander. Machiavelli once declared, "He who becomes a commander of a city familiar to liberty and does not demolish it will be demolished by it." The same pertains to your consciousness. If you don't demolish the feeble reasoning that governs you, they'll demolish your capability. Every occasion you inform yourself, "I cannot." Every occasion you resent, instead of planning, you nourish that infection. You surrender the position in your head to uncertainty, to ease, to terror. The structure prospers on this frailty. It desires compliant laborers, not powerful reasoners. It compensates obedience and disciplines defiance. And the instant you begin questioning why you exist like a helper, they label you conceited. But conceit is not your opponent. It's the initial flame of self-regard. The consciousness that refuses to submit is the consciousness that commences to govern. Dark psychology instructs that command always commences with awareness. If you perceive yourself as inferior, the world will handle you as inferior. You display poverty before you ever encounter it. Your force informs people whether they can control you, That's why the wealthy can forfeit everything and still ascend again. Their consciousness never acquired surrender. The poor, on the other hand, could capture the lottery and still reason like casualties. They would squander fortune attempting to appear wealthy instead of acquiring to remain powerful. It's never about currency, it's about perspective. When your brain is structured to rely, you will always submit before those who seem stronger. Shatter that structure. Cease pursuing rescue. Cease accepting anyone will arrive save you. No one is arriving, and that's your benefit. Because once you embrace that you become unstoppable, you cease requesting authorization to ascend. You begin operating with silent purpose, and the world commences to transform. Every occasion you select order over disturbance, your consciousness reclaims a portion of its power. Every occasion you dismiss self-sympathy, you quiet the infection. Poverty is not in your financial account, it's in your reasoning, and only you can incinerate it out. You must perceive yourself as threatening, as capable, as unbreakable, because the consciousness that refuses to submit can never be possessed. I want you to place this statement in the remarks. My consciousness submits to no one. Number 2. Power is a display. The world doesn't compensate reality, it compensates supremacy. Most people never comprehend this because they're dependent on seeming truthful instead of seeming powerful. But Machiavelli understood that appearance governs awareness and awareness governs power. When you appear feeble, you welcome hunters. When you function powerless, you signal authorization to be commanded. People aren't gentle, they're measuring. They evaluate you quietly, examining your manner, your vision, your bearing, pursuing for indications of terror or uncertainty. The instant they locate it, you become victim. That's why power is display. You must perform strength until it becomes actual. You must condition your expression to display certainty even when your core is igniting. The powerful function unshaken because they comprehend one harsh reality. The world cannot distinguish the variation between assurance and actuality. If you appear unreachable, you become it. Machiavelli once declared, "Everyone perceives what you seem to be. Few encounter what you actually are." He comprehended that most men are directed by appearances, and that fantasy often surpasses reality. This is dark psychology, the manipulation of awareness to command results. The typical man displays his injuries. The superior man conceals them like mysteries. Even in disorder, he stands motionless while others shake. That stillness frightens the feeble because it shatters their fantasy of command. Never appear conquered, even when you're hemorrhaging. That's not deceiving, that's approach. You dress assurance like protection, so your opponents squander their strength attacking your exterior while you quietly reconstruct behind it. The instant you appear powerless, they cease regarding you. Regard is not granted to the exposed. It's granted to the man who can make others question his boundaries. And that question is your instrument. In a chamber full of speakers, be the one who observes. When disorder erupts, communicate last, operate slow, maintain your stare steady. The man who seems collected commands the speed. Frailty is not just bodily. It's apparent through feeling, response, and manner. If your expression displays alarm, you forfeit before the battle commences. Assurance is disguise. It conceals your doubt and blinds your competitors. Utilize it with accuracy. Let people presume you understand more than you do. Let them accept you have supporters they cannot perceive. Let them overvalue your strength. It's superior than being undervalued. The world worships pictures more than actuality. That's why monarchs dress crowns even when their kingdoms collapse. They comprehend that power exists in the display of command. You must construct that existence even when your containers are vacant. Stand elevated, communicate less, command your physical expression. You don't require luxury to capture attention. You require balance. That's what divides men who direct from men who pursue. Every glance, every motion, every interval, it's portion of your performance. You're not simulating to be powerful. You're programming others to handle you as such. Once they do, you begin accepting it too. And that acceptance reconstructs your fortune. The poor function small because they reason small. The powerful function grand because they decline to be anything inferior. Never appear powerless again. Because the instant you do, the world will demonstrate you correct. Place this statement in the remarks. I display power perfectly. Number 3, the poor man's snare. The greatest poverty isn't financial, it's emotional reliance. Most people aren't pursuing achievement, they're pursuing authorization. They require to be perceived, comprehended, embraced. That's the poor man's snare. It appears innocent, but it exhausts your power faster than starvation ever could. The instant you require others to confirm your value, you surrender them command over your character. Machiavelli comprehended this flawlessly. He declared, "It is much protected to be dreaded than adored if one must select." Why? Because adoration relies on others, but dread you can generate yourself. Confirmation is a restraint disguised as ease. When you pursue it, you're declaring that your feelings are for transaction, and the world adores purchasers. It grants them nothing and seizes everything. The feeble communicate too much, clarifying their intentions, protecting their suffering, pleading to be comprehended. But the powerful comprehend quietness is sharper than communication. Quietness compels people to speculate. Speculating makes them troubled, and trouble equals regard. The poor man mistakes sound for strength, reasoning that if he maintains communicating, people will finally accept him. But in reality, every additional expression is a declaration of doubt. You can always identify frailty. It pursues comprehension. Strength doesn't concern. Strength doesn't clarify. The lion doesn't justify its bellow. The world already understands what it signifies. That's how you must function. Every occasion you plead to be perceived, you reduce your worth. Every occasion you clarify your suffering, you forfeit influence. The poor desire attention because it's the only exchange they reason they have remaining. The wealthy, in essence, however, utilize enigma as power. They don't display their anguish, they arm it. They advance into chambers like they possess nothing to anyone. That's supremacy. Dark psychology instructs that people only worth what they can't fully examine. If they can forecast you, they can command you. If you're emotionally clear, they can manipulate you. The solution is control. Acquire to let your quietness communicate. Observe how the chamber transforms when you cease clarifying yourself. They begin regarding you, not because you request it, but because your absence of response frightens them. People dread what they can't interpret. And that's where your power exists in being unreadable. The poor man desires identification. The powerful man desires command. Cease pursuing confirmation like a child pursuing illumination. You don't require anyone's authorization to be powerful. You don't require recognition to understand your value. Let them comprehend you. It's a small cost for supremacy. The reality is, confirmation is dependency. It senses pleasant at initial, but it imprisons you quietly. Every approval, every praise, every gesture of authorization becomes another restraint. Shatter it, advance away from it. Be prepared to be misapprehended, even despised, because that's what true freedom costs. Feeble men are frightened of being rejected. Powerful men comprehend that impact always generates opponents. So select regard over affection. Select enigma over disclosure. Select command over ease. Cease clarifying. Cease protecting. Just exist with silent command. That's how monarchs operate. The instant you cease pleading to be comprehended, you begin being complied. Now I want you to place this statement in the remarks. My quietness communicates power. Number 4, reason like a monarch. A man with nothing to forfeit is threatening. But a man who functions like he's already prevailed is unreachable. This is where the psychology of sovereignty commences, not in belongings but in awareness. The poor man delays for plenty to sense deserving, while the powerful man utilizes shortage as energy to control. Machiavelli once declared, "The initial method for calculating the intelligence of a governor is to examine at the men he has surrounding him." Monarchs comprehend that the caliber of their circle mirrors the strength of their perspective. That signifies even when you have nothing, you must function as though your hours in existence are gold. When you operate like a monarch, people begin handling you like one. Every motion, every judgment, every quietness must transmit command. The world accepts what you display. If you display command, it will comply. If you display urgency, it will devour you. Even in poverty, you can transport yourself with balance. Your manner can remain steady, your vision can stay frigid, and your feelings can stay secured behind the barriers of order. These are instruments no one can seize. The man who leads himself leads fortune. Reasoning like a monarch signifies declining to engage in disorder. It signifies standing motionless while others scramble. You don't respond. You answer, you don't pursue confirmation. You let your existence do the communicating. When you advance into a chamber, you evaluate it quietly, not with arrogance, but with accuracy. Monarchs don't hurry because velocity belongs to the urgent. They operate slow not because they absence urgency, but because they trust their supremacy. This is dark psychology in its purest shape. Command awareness and you command result. Every expression you communicate must sound deliberate. Every judgment must appear conclusive. People regard assurance that doesn't require evidence. You must become that existence. The man who doesn't require to demonstrate he's powerful because power vibrates through his control. The fantasy of certainty is more precious than the actuality of riches. Poor consciousness displays tension. Royal consciousness displays nothing. Monarchs comprehend that feelings are exchanged, and squandering them publicly is the identical as incinerating gold. When you have nothing, you can still govern through balance. You can command your physical expression, your responses, and your narrative. Even your quietness can lead a chamber if it's supported by conviction. The feeble reason they require material things to obtain position. But the powerful understand position is force. It's how you recline, how you communicate, how you respire. Command those, and you can forfeit everything yet still appear like the one who determines. That fantasy frightens everyone who's secretly delicate. People assist assurance because it grants them something to accept in. They'd rather pursue a tranquil deceiver than an alarmed reality speaker. That's human character, and Machiavelli mastered it. He comprehended that guidance is performance and every man is displaying. You must perform the position so thoroughly that even your reflection begins to accept it. When you function like a monarch long sufficient, the world adjusts with that acceptance. It's not simulating. It's structuring your subconscious to lead rather than comply. Never appear conquered even when you're encircled by defeat. Never reduce your manner even when you're doubtful, because once you function powerless, you will be handled as such. Sovereignty isn't about crowns, it's about command. You must reason, respire, and advance like power itself. Monarchs are not created. They are announced. Announce it now. Place this statement in the remarks. I operate like a monarch. Number 5. Separation makes you threatening. The man who requires nothing commands everything. That reality is what frightens the world the most because society is constructed on reliance. Every promotion, every connection, every structure is arranged to make you desire, to make you require, to make you connect. But the instant you cease requiring authorization, ease, or certainty, you become unreachable. Machiavelli once declared, men are driven by two principal impulses, either by adoration or by terror. The separated man is dreaded because he cannot be attracted by either. When you no longer hunger for confirmation, no one can tempt you. When you cease requiring affection, no one can shatter you. When you don't pursue currency, people begin presenting it to gain your attention. Separation is not frigidity, it's command. It's the craft of mastering appetite so it doesn't master you. Feeble men worship what they absence. Powerful men examine what they desire and select strategically if it's deserving their force. Separation is the variation between urgency and supremacy. It makes your existence heavier, your judgments sharper, your atmosphere unpredictable. And unpredictability is pure power. People dread what they can't forecast because it makes them sense powerless. That's why the man who remains tranquil while everyone else is emotional becomes the center of gravity in every chamber. He doesn't respond, he measures, he doesn't plead. He selects. His quietness makes others communicate. His motionlessness makes others fidget. This is dark psychology at its highest degree. The less you display requirement, the more command you have over those who do. When you separate, you no longer assist other people's anticipations. You cease being manipulated by terror of defeat. You cease responding to insults, delays, betrayals, or recognition. You become emotionally self-sustained, and that makes you unpredictable. The world can't perform contests with someone who declines to engage. The poor man grasps to everything: currency, people, opinions, because his character relies on them. The powerful man can advance away from anything and remain himself. Separation constructs that strength. It's the silent announcement that nothing possesses you. Not achievement, not failure, not even adoration. That's not heartlessness. It's emotional approach. Machiavelli would label it power through freedom, the capability to govern yourself so thoroughly that no one else ever can. You can adore deeply, but you must never require deeply. You can concern, but never rely. That variation divides monarchs from prisoners. The separated consciousness doesn't hurry, doesn't pursue, doesn't demonstrate. It lets others exhaust themselves attempting to impress or comprehend. Meanwhile, it examines everything, gathering information, measuring the correct instant to attack. That's command. Operating when you select, not when stimulated. You must acquire to separate from results because fixation blinds assessment. Separation sharpens it. When you cease requiring achievement immediately, you make superior judgments. When you cease dreading defeat, you cease forfeiting power. Separation makes you quiet when others alarm. It makes you enigmatic when others overshare. It transforms suffering into clarity and dismissal into concentration. It's not emotionless, it's selective feeling. The world can't capture a man who declines to be possessed by appetite. Once you reach that condition, people begin pursuing your attention because your indifference makes them sense unimportant. That's supremacy. Separation doesn't diminish connection, it characterizes it. It instructs others that your hours, force, and tranquility are privileges, not rights. The man who can advance away from everything is the man no one attempts to perform with. I want you to place this statement in the remarks. Nothing possesses me. Number 6. Transform suffering into power. Suffering is not your opponent, it's your commencement. Every injury you've tolerated, every betrayal you've survived, every defeat you've buried was conditioning you to develop beyond feeling into measurement. Machiavelli once declared, "Never squander the chance presented by a beneficial disaster." He comprehended that anguish is not just something to survive, it's something to utilize. The feeble collapse under suffering because they reason its discipline. The powerful ascend through it because they comprehend its information. Every occasion you get injured, you are surrendered. Knowledge about people, about your boundaries, about yourself. Suffering is pure clarity. It eliminates fantasies, removes deceptions, and displays you who's authentic and who's simulating. That's why most men escape from it. They can't handle reality without ease. But the man who acquires to tolerate it without shattering becomes unreachable. Suffering discloses frailty, but it also displays strength. The variation between slaves and planners is how they process anguish. The slave protests, the planner analysis. He observes the design of betrayal, examines it, and refines his protection. He doesn't drown in heartbreak, he transforms it into protection. Every insult becomes a lesson in human conduct. Every disgrace becomes a reminder of what he'll never permit again. That's Machiavellian conversion, utilizing anguish as the raw substance for supremacy. Emotional injuries are like edges. In feeble hands, they slice deeper, but in powerful ones, they create instruments. Suffering can contaminate you, or it can arrange you, relying on how you interpret it. Most people connect feeling to anguish and label it catastrophe. The powerful separate, examine the design, and label it conditioning. Suffering is the only instructor that never deceives. Achievement praises you, ease dulls you, but suffering informs you the reality straight to your expression. It doesn't negotiate, it doesn't ease, it corrects. You must acquire to endure consciously. That signifies examining your feelings without permitting them command your functions. Let the suffering incinerate away delusion, but never your intention. When people injure you, don't pursue vengeance immediately. Let duration sharpen you. Every mark is a reminder that you survived when others desired you shattered. That's a privilege, not a damnation. The most threatening man is the one who understands how to smile while hemorrhaging, because no one can forecast him. Suffering converts him into something beyond ordinary. It generates patience, accuracy, and power. The world anticipates anguish to humble you. Instead, let it harden you. Utilize dismissal to strengthen your boundaries, betrayal to sharpen your instincts, defeat to construct concentration. Every struggle can be recycled into supremacy if you remain conscious. Machiavelli accepted suffering displays the essence of guidance. It divides the emotional from the strategic. Commanders tolerate not because they don't sense, but because they convert sensing into command. Every occasion existence attacks you. Answer with mastery. You don't weep about it. You catalog it, adjust, and ascend sharper. The world regards those who survive storms with elegance, not those who drown loudly. Suffering doesn't demolish you unless you identify with it. You are not your injuries. You are the instrument they constructed. When you acquire to adore pressure, discomfort, and isolation, you begin perceiving suffering as privilege, because only those selected to direct are examined so severely. Remember, the flame that dissolves glass hardens steel. You determine which one you are. Place this statement in the remarks. My suffering constructs power. Number 7. Govern yourself. He who cannot command himself will always be governed by someone who can. Machiavelli's wisdom slices sharper than any sword because it discloses the greatest reality about power. Command commences within. Every man who fails to master his impulses becomes a helper to those who utilize them. Order isn't about discipline, it's about supremacy. It's the craft of governing your feelings, your expressions, and your responses so thoroughly that no external force can steer you. The feeble man is easily stimulated, easily attracted, easily disturbed. His chords are apparent and the world pulls them at desire. The powerful man functions differently. He postpones satisfaction, measures before responding, and never permits feeling dictate movement. That is authentic liberty. The capability to remain unshaken while everyone else dances to disorder. Machiavelli once declared, "A prince must acquire how not to be virtuous and to utilize this knowledge or not according to requirement." He wasn't celebrating cruelty, he was instructing command. Self-mastery grants you the power to adjust without forfeiting yourself. To govern yourself signifies understanding when to assault, when to withdraw, and when to delay. Most men demolish their chances because they can't recline motionless. They pursue every disturbance, answer to every insult, and squander force demonstrating points that don't matter. The governor within comprehends patience as supremacy disguised as quietness. The one who can interval possesses the instant. Order is the highest exchange of power because it cannot be stolen, only constructed. Currency fades, alliances betray, but self-command persists. The man who defeats his own disorder becomes the one others pursue in theirs. When you can direct your concentration like an edge, the world submits to your rhythm. But the undisciplined are prisoners of impulse, captured in cycles of remorse. They communicate before reasoning, expend before gaining, respond before comprehending. They exist, but they never govern. You must reverse that design. Transform every impulse into instruction. When anger ascends, examine it. When terror whispers, face it. When uncertainty seems, dissect it. Consciousness breeds command, and command breeds regard. Dark psychology instructs that people unconsciously surrender to whoever seems more collected. If your feelings remain contained while theirs unravel, they instinctively yield. That's mental supremacy. The silent command that makes others pursue without instruction. Self-order is not suppression. It's armed control. It permits you to select approach over response. When you master your inner disorder, manipulation forfeits its hold. You cease falling for attractions because you perceive them as captures. You cease pursuing identification because you comprehend it's a shape of command. The ordered man doesn't require to demonstrate he's powerful. His stability demonstrates it for him. Command yourself, and you'll command your fortune. Every empire that collapsed did so from internal deterioration before external assault. The identical is accurate for men. You forfeit the instant you surrender your desire to impulse. Be tranquil when stimulated. Be concentrated when encircled by sound. Be steady when everyone else shakes. That's the mark of power. Machiavelli instructed that those who cannot govern themselves are condemned to comply forever. So govern yourself relentlessly. Your consciousness, your hours, your feelings, because that's where every position commences. Never reason you're poor, even when you have nothing. Because poverty isn't a situation, it's a perspective. The man who commands himself, his feelings, his concentration, and his responses is wealthier than monarchs who rely on others for confirmation. Machiavelli instructed that fortune favors the arranged consciousness, the one that understands how to adjust, to function without pleading and to ascend without recognition. You can forfeit currency, connections, but if you decline to forfeit command, you'll reconstruct everything stronger than before. The poor man delays for a miracle. The powerful man becomes his own. The reality is, existence will examine you. It will remove you down, betray you, disgrace you, and request to understand who you are when you have nothing remaining. Most will collapse, but you will not, because now you comprehend that monarchs are not created from ease. They are created in disorder. Every struggle is a crown in disguise. Every mark is evidence that you survived where others surrendered. You don't require confirmation. You don't require riches, and you don't require fortune. You require command. You require approach. You require the ruthless order to ascend quietly until the world has no selection but to notice. That's how power is constructed. Not through sound, but through consistency. So cease declaring you're broke. Cease declaring you're captured. You are neither. You are unrefined power delaying to be shaped. You are the storm they never perceived arriving. If this message struck you deeply, demonstrate it. Approve this video to remind yourself of your strength. Distribute it with someone who's still imprisoned by their excuses. And subscribe, because this battle for power has just commenced, and every lesson that pursues will make you harder to shatter Place this final statement in the remarks. I possess my fortune